resting their case. An emotional day for the jury as the prosecution in the Boston Marathon bombing trial calls their last witness, the medical examiner who performed the autopsy on that 8-year-old Martin Richard. That doctor detailing the very graphic final moments of that little boy's life. Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Kleffler in New York. And following the trial for us is ABC's Tom Llamas. And Tom, not an easy thing for the courtroom to listen to today.
Hey, Dan, it's a little difficult to hear you out here. It's actually hailing, but I think you tossed over to me. It was an incredibly emotional day in court today. It was testimony that you will never forget, and likely the jurors will never forget. What they talked about today, how the prosecution rested their case, was with the autopsy photos and an autopsy analysis of that 8-year-old who died, Martin Richard. The testimony was so graphic. This little boy who stood just a little over 4 feet had not a single piece of his body that wasn't wounded or injured. The blast lacerated his major organs. It also lacerated his spine, and the jurors actually saw photos from the autopsy, and they also held up in court his clothes. He was wearing a Boston Celtics jersey that was tattered, it was charred, it was soaked in blood. They also held up an item of clothing that we couldn't make out what it was. It was unclear if it was shorts or pants, and neither could the chief medical examiner from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Says he wasn't even sure because it was so torn apart by the blast, and then of course the little boy's sneakers. And throughout this all, the Richards parents, Martin Richards' parents, were right there, Bill and Denise, and they were listening to this testimony. I don't know how they were able to do it, but I think they wanted to stand strong for their son. During really graphic moments of the testimony, Bill Richard, I observed him just kind of closing his eyes, and he clutched his wife. Jurors, I saw at least 6 jurors visibly crying during the testimony when they had to see those autopsy photos. At least 2 men in the jury of the 18 were just horrified by what they saw. You could see it in their face, and throughout it all, Jahar Sarnaev just sat with his face on his fist, just kind of leaning forward. He seemed uninterested, but he did not want to look at those photos once they were published onto the screen. Dan?
Tom, I want to talk to you just very quickly, if we can. I want to talk about this case now moving forward. The defense will present their version of those events. What is the first thing they're expected to do?
Well, they've actually already started. They called to the stand the FBI's photographer who handled a lot of the evidence in this case. We heard from this woman earlier today. It was the first witness the defense called, and what they brought out was a book called Wiring. It's basically a home wiring book, how to wire things around your home. It was found inside the Sarnaev home underneath the couch. Now, this is the first time I've ever seen this evidence introduced in court so far. And what the defense is trying to do is they're trying to suggest that that home, that's where Tamerlan lived mostly with his wife and child, though Johar lived there at times. But that was mostly Tamerlan's home, and what they're trying to suggest it was that Tamerlan was the one who made these pressure cooker bombs, and they're trying to put that out there to kind of raise some doubt in the eyes of the jury that, wait a minute, did Johar, was he really an equal partner in this, or was he just following Tamerlan into this terrorism act that happened at the Boston Marathon?
ABC's Tom Llamas with us from Boston. Tom, thank you. We appreciate that. Tom will have a complete recap tonight from Boston on ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir on our local station. Keep up with the story in real time, though, downloading your ABC News app, starring the story for updates on the go. I'm Dan Kleffler in New York.